Hey everybody, welcome to Watches with Dennis, and I have a special guest today on this video. We have Ryan Claytor, who
Hello.
is yes, welcome Ryan. And you've done so much, and we're going to get into it. I mean, let's see, you're a professor, you're a comics book artist, you're an author, you've done watch design, you've done neon design, you've done stuff in pinball.
It's enough.
You've revived the litany of scoreboards that are out there waiting for plastics that hadn't melted. I mean, you've done quite a bit
That's
in
a
the
deep cut.
Yeah, it is, and no one will get it. But scoreboard was a pinball machine from the 50s, wood rail. Watch, they really don't care what I'm diving into. But
I know that show.
I know it only because I owned one, and I sold mine before you did your redo on the plastics.
Yeah.
And my sister did her own version, and she did very well with the tools she had, but it wasn't the one-for-one recreation that you did.
Well,
so anyway.
Thank you. I hope your sister's happy with her own recreations. Nevertheless,
I think she was. I think she was pretty pleased as punch, as they would say. But could you go ahead and tell us about One Time at a Time? Obviously, you have the URL listed here with your name, and I'll integrate some imagery here, folks, so you can get some better looks at like the cover of the book and stuff. But Ryan, what is this book?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Dennis. It's great to be here and chatting with you again. So I'm coming out with a big, oversized hardcover art book featuring 20 years of my work. And because there's so much there's a lot to talk about. But like the two main things I want to mention are the content and the format of this book. I'm very excited about both. So this book is called One Bite at a Time. You can find it at onebiteatatimebook.com, where it's currently crowdfunding right now during the month of November 2023. So as far as the content is concerned for this book, this not only features 20 years of my work in comics, illustration, and design, but also a heavy emphasis on behind the scenes images and the process that went into creating each one of these pieces. You know, I've picked up many art books over the course of my life and really appreciate them, but I've also read a number that are simply pretty picture after pretty picture. And when I'm done with that type of experience, I'm left feeling sort of empty. Like, I want to know more about them. Like, when was this made? Why was it made? Who was it made for? And I'm trying to contextualize some of the pieces in my book with a little bit of text and a lot of behind the scenes process imagery. So the content I'm super excited about. But as I mentioned, there's this other component, the formatting of the book. So this is going to be just an over-the-top book in terms of production. If you look at the book itself, it's got a dual cloth-bound cover, so it's not paper-bound, it's actual cloth on the cover. It's got a dual foil-stamped image on the front, spine, and back, built-in ribbon bookmarks, copper-gilded page edges, and that's not even talking about the interior, which has a bunch of other specialty formatting items in there, like gatefold pages and vellum overlays and die-cut reveals. In fact, would you mind if I showed this die-cut reveal that I just
Absolutely.
mentioned?
Feel free to share away.
I feel like I say these specialty printing things and nobody except maybe 1% of the population knows what I'm talking about.
I didn't know what you were saying, quite frankly, but that's all right. I'm just a watch Yahoo, and let me go ahead and add this here so now people can see it. There we go.
Okay, so these are some of the pages I was mentioning in the book, and you can see some watches and some behind-the-scenes stuff of how these were created. You know, I was trying to figure out poses for different characters, and then these are actually the original artwork for each one of the different discs. There's a glass print, and an hours disc and a minutes disc and a back dial print to really give it some dimension. But the part that I really wanted to highlight here with regard to the formatting of the book is the specialty formatting, the die cut reveals. So this particular image is a very high resolution scan of some original artwork that I did for a book called Coin Op Carnival. And we can zoom in here to see, you can check out the pencils and the multiple ink strokes to see exactly how it was made. But the way this is being included in the book is via this page that has some cut windows in it. And through those
Oh,
windows,
okay.
you can see the final scanned and colored and corrected page. So it's like you can see a before image and then turn the page to an after image, or you can see them both at once, before and after, because you're looking through the page to see that final version. And then on the left-hand side of the page, you can see that happening too. So these are some of the specialty formatting things in the book that I'm super excited about.
Okay, I didn't even know publishers had that as an option to do with paper with their pages.
Yeah, I'm a big print nerd, and there's a lot of specialty formatting that I'm going to be including in this book. Something that I've always wanted to do. Each book I do, I tend to try to think about the packaging of it and how that can relate to the content itself. So as you'll see in this book right here, the specialty formatting that I'm creating is not simply for fanciness sake. It's to further that theme of process that runs throughout the book. So like the vellum overlay that I was talking about, vellum is like, sort of a translucent paper. And I'm including a sheet of that to show how this original artwork that I created was physically created in layers, and you're getting that experience as close to reality as I can possibly give you. So you've got that piece of tracing paper, you see what was on there, and underneath you see the original artwork and how it relates to it.
Okay. So, it sounds like there are a lot of steps here that you've put in, a lot of additional information to sort of elevate this above what I would refer to as the coffee table book into something a bit more, maybe narrative's not the right word, maybe informative would be a better way to describe it.
Yeah, I would not take offense at either, actually.
Well,
this is
all right.
very...
Why not both, as the little meme girl would say? Why not both?
Yeah, so in terms of informative, I'm hoping that it informs people, but each piece has a little bit of didactic information along with it that kind of tells the tale of how this piece came to be. But then as you step back in sort of a macro vision of this book, it really tells the tale of a career in progress. And I don't say a career as a whole, because while this features 20 years of my work, I still feel like I have a lot to do. So this goes from the start of my career, early days of grad school, all the way up to right now, where I've become a professor of comics and I make my own work outside of that for both myself and for clients. So I'm really excited to share all this work in this unique way.
So what was the decision making behind deciding to do a book like this at this point in your career versus I've retired, it's memoir time, let's take the body of work. I mean, as you've noted, as your book notes, you've been engaged in a number of very eclectic projects, all involving art, of course, but touching on a variety of medium, from print and books to you've done t-shirt designs. We'll get into the watches in a little bit, which is very, very different than a lot of that other stuff, other than, of course, you're still applying your skill set. But, why this versus some other project?
Sure. That's a great question. So rewind about 5 years to 2019, and you're familiar with a publication that my best friend Nick Baldridge and I put out together called Coin Op Carnival. It's an illustrated magazine about electromechanical coin-operated amusement devices. So in layman's terms, that means old pinball and arcade games. Mm-hmm. So we were touring this over the course of 2019, right before the world shut down. And at the end of that year, I was literally sitting in my booth at Pinball Expo and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is my 15-year anniversary of making comics. And I didn't do anything to celebrate it. And so at that time, I told myself, I really want to make a big deal out of the 20 years of Elephant Eater Comics, which is my self-publishing comics imprint. So I started brainstorming, and I came up with this idea because I'm really interested in art books. And I thought, well, it would be really fun to compile 20 years of my work into an art book. And I was having dinner with my wife one night and sort of pitched this idea to her. And it was really funny. She said, okay, but why? Like, I don't get it. Like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. It's neat, I guess. I can put all my work together. And she's like, but but I don't understand the reason yet. Like, why are you doing this? And so I'm so happy that I have a very candid wife to talk to me about this and push me in that direction, because it really made me hone and focus my purpose for creating this book, which I eventually came to the conclusion, I really love seeing how people do what they do. I love process work. And as an educator, as a teacher, I've sort of incorporated that into my life's work. And so that sort of became the overarching theme of this art book, where every single piece has a heavy emphasis on process and really pulling back that curtain to show the reader, hey, this is what it takes to make these pieces. So yes, it's a little educational. Yes, it's a little narrative talking about each piece. And that was sort of the impetus for starting to create this book. So this has been in the works for, almost 5 years at this point. And really, if you take the whole thing into consideration, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. You've already shown with your share of some of the stuff out of the book that the aspects of the watches that you've designed, which of course for the audience of this channel is probably the element they're going to be most curious about, because watch designers they come from all sorts of walks of life, but most of the ones that we're familiar with have been in the industry. Like they're usually very dedicated to just working on watches, and it's a very different environment versus Mr. Jones Watches, which is the company you've gone along with, which has done a lot with bringing in artists from the outside world of non-watches, and then bringing them into the horological space to do their craft in the realm of a timepiece. And so I wondered, since it's probably of interest, and of course, get the book and read the book to know about the design and the process and the layering and how the actual construction of the watches came to be. But I thought it might be interesting to some people to hear about the storytelling of how you got involved with all of that. Because, of course, I did do an interview with you on this channel back when your Ricochet watch came out, but that was actually your second watch. You started with Mr. Jones Watches with Step Right Up. And so I was curious if you could explain, like, how did that even come into being? Like, how did you do a watch with Mr. Jones Watches?
Yeah. That's kind of a fun story. And thank you for pulling up those images. So this is
I'm prepared. Right, I'm very ready.
This is Step Right Up. This was the first watch I collaborated with Mr. Jones Watches on. And to take it back a little further, 2020 rolled around. We all know how that went. And in those early pandemic months, I think we were all trying to figure out how to make the most of this really difficult time. And for me, it was diving into a new hobby. I sort of discovered watches and micro brands and watchmaking. And when I stumbled across Mr. Jones Watches, I was really taken, and I was just poring over their website and looking at their watches. And eventually I just reached out to them and I said, hey, I love what you do. I'm an artist. If you ever need another one, I'd love to work with you. And to my surprise, over the course of the next day or so, they got back to me and said, we took a look at your portfolio. We love what you do. We'd love to work with you. And that was the start of our relationship. So I pitched them a few designs, and Step Right Up was the one that they were most interested in tackling at first. And, as you can see, it's sort of a look at a turn of the century carnival shooting gallery, where you've got these ducks and targets moving along the upper portion behind the curtain. And the ducks are the hour numerals, and the targets below are the minutes. So I just had a ton of fun working on this. And as far as the book is concerned, I think I just showed you a little behind the scenes of Step Right Up on how those discs sort of come together. There's a front glass print with a bunch of different colors on it, and then this particular watch has an hours disc, a minutes disc, and then if you look behind those, there's actually a dial print where you can see the continuation of those curtains behind the ducks and behind the targets. So this has essentially 4 layers. And a little behind the scenes info, we were originally talking about the possibility of making this 5 layers instead of 4. And I had a version of the watch where the characters in the front panel there are a layer. but then
Mm.
behind them is the teddy bears and the front curtains. So the characters were even separated further from the environment. Eventually, we went through a number of revisions and decided that, you know what, it just added a little too much depth to the watch and complications for printing and assembling. And we wanted to simplify the design a little bit more and keep the price point at a point where more people could get in. Seems like that worked because it's sold out faster than any Mr. Jones watch prior to this. So yeah, I'm really proud of how this turned out.
Yes, this one was, I'm going to just let people know for the era. This one was very frustrating for those of us who didn't wake up in time to order the watch, because I got up and here in weird farmland Central Time was an hour too late to have gotten up and gotten that watch because it sold so quickly. I knew it was coming out, but it ended up going so fast. And that one, unlike the one we're going to move into, didn't join the main collection, so they only made that limited run.
That's right. That's right.
I, of course, used my high degree of influence and was able to eventually get one, as in someone gave it to me as a gift, actually. So I did end up with one years later. About 2 years later, I did get a step right up. But that's not the one I'm wearing today. I'm actually wearing Ricochet.
Nice.
Which is the second watch that you did with Mr. Jones. So, as you've noted, Step Right Up came out. Now, for those that don't know, that was a quartz watch. Very approachable on the price point. But Mr. Jones watches generally are pretty approachable on price point, given that they are very limited runs. It's a micro brand. And so there's more going into it than, say, going and picking up a Casio 91 or whatever. So you pay more than that. But, I mean, we're talking... A lot of these I think that one was under 300 when it launched, and yes. Ricochet to date is still under 400, I believe. And so could you talk a little bit about, I don't need you to rehash, of course, your entire interview, but that was a couple of years ago with me, so no one remembers at this point. So Ricochet, now this is not the limited version. This is the one that's still available, or at least it keeps selling out. I don't know. I keep hearing people say we see this on pinball forums. People will go, Ricochet's available. And someone posts 2 hours later, Ricochet is not available. Ricochet is gone.
I keep trying to let the pinball community know, hey, it's back again, and inevitably somebody, as you said, will chime in moments later. No, it's not. Anyway, as you said, it keeps coming in and out of availability. I'm so glad that Mr. Jones Watches continues to make this available, because this is the most complex watch they make. Just to let you know a little bit about this, it's a jump hour automatic movement. So the hour there will remain in place and then jump at the following hour, whereas the minutes circle around in a rotary fashion, and you can tell the time via the player score there. And the dial image has, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the number of individual colors on that, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of double digits, 10, 11, 15, 12, I can't remember. But I really pushed them on this design, because not only are there a copious amount of colors on that glass, but it's also triple gilded. So it's got gold, silver, and rose gold plating on there. That's a really time-consuming process to do once, let alone 3 times. So they really go above and beyond on this design to make it really special. This is a design that's hard to replicate in photographs. I've tried to photograph mine, and it just pales in comparison to seeing it in person. Mm-hmm. I think these studio photographs probably come the closest of anything I've seen. But yeah, I mean, you have one of these, Dennis. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's I mean, the gilded robots are the highlight. As fun as the jump hour is, the time telling is a very small aspect of the total overall dial. What catches people's attention is the gilt robots, and I will impose, against the power of post. I do have moving footage that I'll put in of this, where you can see it play in the light more as the watch moves around within light, so you can get a better sense than you will in a still. So in that regard, I mean, I do have to say now. Caveat, as I always have to be fair, this was at a pinball show, but I wore this watch to a pinball event. Just that one event, I had more people notice this, because you'll see those robots from like 30 feet away. If there's any light, like unless it's dark out, if there's light, those robots will catch it and they will reflect.
Yeah.
And that reflection and refraction of light catches people's eyes. I have had more compliments on Ricochet than my entire watch collection combined.
Wow. Wow. That's
And
amazing.
it's the robots that always catch their eyes. In fact,
Yeah.
it's usually people see the robots and then they ask, well, where do you tell the time? Because because the rotary, this is a mechanical watch, but the rotary of the minutes, they're stamped in 5-minute increments. So you can't instantly see it. In fact, while the limited model had a little Easter egg that you put in for the second, where the seconds hand or the seconds disc would be, the mainline production non-limited versions don't have that, so they can't see that anything's moving. And then they wonder, like, where's the time? It's like, oh, no, the score displays do move. You just have to wait. You have to wait a few minutes to see it. And then, of course, the hour hand, as you noted, or the hour disc jumps at the top of every hour. So that's and it's always fun if you time it. Don't sit there for 50 minutes and wait. But if you time it and you take a good look at it, that'll jump. So in terms of, I'm curious about the decision to gilt the robots, because I've not gone through everything that's in Mr. Jones's catalog, but I had never seen that done before. How did you convince them to do, like, did you come in going, I want gilt robots? And they're like, we can't do it, Ryan. And you're like, you will do it. Trust me. You're going to be moved. You want to be the next Audemars Piguet. You're going to gilt these robots. I mean, I don't know how it happened, or if that was a technology they were familiar with and they said, hey, you know what? We could do something in gilt. And you're like, I have just the thing.
Yeah, it was more the latter. Believe it or not, I wasn't that dictatorial about it, but I'm quite familiar with their collection.
The stubborn artist who comes in just like, no capes, foiled robots only. That's how I wanted it to be, but I guess that's my headcanon's
for you.
Yeah, yes.
So yeah, I'm very familiar with their collection. As I said, I got intimately acquainted with it over the course of the pandemic because I was just poring over their website and looking through their archives a number of times. And I saw a few watches that had gilding on it, typically one, maybe two. And so I said, hey, I've never seen copper gilding before or rose gold gilding. Those are very, very close. In fact, another behind the scenes factoid, the limited edition Ricochet had copper gilding, but the unlimited edition, what are we calling it? The reissued version, it has rose gold instead because it's much easier to work with than the copper gilding.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody knows or cares, but there's a little something for your audience.
They care now.
Yeah. So anyway, I had seen some gilding happen on alternate Mr. Jones watches in the past, but never triple gilding. And I said, hey, is copper available? And they sent me this website from where they get their gilding. And indeed it was. And secondly, can we do triple gilding? Because I have this idea. And, they said, well, we've never done it before, but we're willing to try it on a limited run. And sure enough, it worked out. So the rest is history. They said the copper gilding was a little more brittle and difficult to work with. So the rose gold, I was actually really afraid when they made the suggestion to shift it to rose gold, because I thought, the copper has a really nice contrast with the other colors of metals. And I was afraid that rose gold would not have that same contrast and look very much like that front yellow robot.
Right. That they might look too much alike.
It looks almost exactly like the copper version. I have both, and it's hard to tell the difference between gildings of copper to rose gold. So they did a fantastic job there. And I don't know if your watch audience is interested in more factoids, but the limited edition of Ricochet has an extra element that is not present in the reissued version, and that is a seconds disc. So it's a little difficult to see where that comes into play, and it does not tell you the seconds. The seconds disc I designed for that limited edition version actually sits behind the pop bumper and the inserts on the playfield with light and dark elements, so that it looks like lights are flashing on the playfield. And the extra secret element about that is that those light and dark areas are actually set up in a Morse code So if you decode those elements, they say my wife's name and my son's name inside there. So they're on the playfield too.
Yeah, that one was very. I never would have figured out the Morse code with the flickering. Yes, because the photos now are of I always think of as the mainline production, the non-limited. So those are now solid. These were, and that's why I'm moving my mouse around on the screen for folks so they can kind of see it. Is I think the center of the pop and these arrows are inserts for the anatomy of a playfield, folks. And so those were actually transparent. And so you would see the disc had altering coloration. So it would look like, especially in highlight, you could, in highlight situations, you could really notice it. It would look like it was flashing or flickering.
Yes.
Because those lights turn off and on pinball machines.
And that was part of the reason for phasing it out of the reissued version, is that, as you said, in high light situations, you could see that. But in less than optimal light situations, it was a little difficult to see. Those windows were extraordinarily small, and you really have to be looking for it. And so for the amount of time, effort, money that it took to make that additional item, we all came to the conclusion that, look, this is a ridiculously complex watch as it is, so let's maybe phase that out and make our jobs a little easier moving forward. And it wasn't that big of a bang for the buck. If we were to increase the price, it just didn't make sense. So that's why we phased it out.
So it didn't get sacrificed to afford the rose gold foil.
No.
Okay.
The rose gold was pretty much the same process, but easier, and price as the copper gilding, from my understanding.
Watches in the future, Ryan, what are you designing?
Oh gosh. Well,
I should say, are you designing another watch?
I have designed more watches.
Okay.
However, not all of them have been accepted. In fact, they will be shown One Bite at a Time.
We're all back to the purpose of the interview. Very, very clean segue. Subtle as a chainsaw. I appreciate it.
So if you're interested, you can check it out at the book. I proposed another design that's actually based on mandalas. I was getting into these mirror drawings a while back, like last year. And the more I did them, the more I was having fun, and the more they were on my brain. And of course, that sort of like dovetailed with my interest in watches, and thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to have a mandala themed watch? And so I drew it up. And when I drew the sketch, I thought, man, this just looks like a mess. I can see it in my mind, but if I show this to anybody, it's not going to be anything. And so I fully penciled and inked the entire thing. And even so, when I composited it and it was moving around, it still looked like a mess. And so I'm like, that's it. I'm just going to finish the entire thing and then propose it. And so I colored it. I'm like, yes, this is the vision that I had in my mind, and proposed it. And unfortunately, Mr. Jones and team were not as excited about it as I was. I still think it's an incredible piece, and I'm excited to share it with people as a rejected design in the book that I've got on a crowdfunding campaign right now.
Awesome. Well, folks, if you're interested in learning more about the book or ordering the book or whatever you want to find out about the book, they can go to www.onebiteatatimebook.com. And the campaign's going. I know you're doing a lot of interviews this month, a lot of stuff going on as you do the promotion. Is there anything you wanted to end the audience with?
Gosh, maybe if I could just share a couple of the reward tiers that I'm really excited about.
Sure.
Do you mind if I share the screen again?
Absolutely. Share away.
Fantastic. Here we are on the campaign page, and the physical book itself is over 250 pages, oversized hardback, and all these bells and whistles. I'm actually offering it for 17% off the cover price. It's going to be $59.95 retail. So you're getting a discount and free shipping if you order it via the Kickstarter. But I'm also including a couple other things, like I've never created a patch before, and I'm really excited about this commemorative patch that I've created. I have these in hand. This is actually in my hand. And I'm also doing a raised copper foil print to go along with it. But for folks who are really interested in behind the scenes information, I'm also doing a book club where, in addition to that limited edition print and patch that I'm doing, and the book is going to be signed. You also get an invitation-only book discussion with me, where I'll deliver a presentation on some behind the scenes of creating this book, how it came to be, and also field some questions and answers at the end. So I think this is going to be a really fun and unique experience. I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to see who shows up on this book club. So before we close out, I figured I'd just mention a couple of the things that are available via the Kickstarter.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on, for sharing a couple of anecdotes regarding your watch development process and what more people can find out through the book. And of course, we've only really, because of this channel, touched a lot on the watches, but Ryan has done so much other stuff like neon. I know you were a big neon designer. I know because I bought one years ago. Bought one. Made it sound like it was off the shelf. It was super custom work, which that was a fun process to do. And of course, you've done so much in the way of like T-shirts, where you've done stuff for podcasts and so many other things. Really, a lot in the arcade space is what I'm familiar with. But obviously, 20 years is quite a bit. Not to make you sound old, but it is quite a bit. I mean, you've been around for a while, so there is really a lot there. So, did you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, let's show them your neon. I just pulled it up right now.
Oh gosh,
you mentioned this. We've got to show it, right?
Oh well, if you insist, let me add it to the.
So here is Dennis Creasel's custom arcade neon.
Oh,
it's got
yes.
this, retro rocket ship in the middle. We went through a few designs, and this is going to be featured in the book as well, Dennis. So thank you for allowing me to include this. But these are a number of different custom neon designs I've done over the years. And many of them will be featured in the book. So
as much as I do love my rocket ship, I really like the one. I don't know if it'll be in the book or not, but I really like the one you did with Godzilla.
That'll be in there too. Okay.
There is a Godzilla one, and it's just like, oh, if only I had known about Godzilla. But my rocket ship's a lot of fun for my 50s sci-fi desires, my old Forbidden Planet vibe sort of thing. Yeah, no, they did fly a flying saucer, so that was different.
Designing your sign was really fun because you had some really eclectic interests. I mean, it wasn't just 50s sci-fi, but it was also like 80s cyberpunk, and like trying to think about how each of these would translate was a lot of fun.
On retrospect, that was really weird of me to be like, Ryan, I'm thinking two things: 50s rocket ship or cyberpunk. And so you had two different designs. They're just not at all alike. It's like, so which one are you going with? And I think I went with a rocket because I thought the cyberpunk was an awful lot of glass when I finally looked at it. It was a lot to get those running lights. Oh, it was cool though. It would have been very good.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I wasn't sure which direction you were going to go. I was psyched about all of them, but I think your rocket ship turned out amazing.
Yeah, the rocket ship is that thing is huge. Incidentally, that it takes up an entire wall in my game room because it's like 6 feet wide. It's very, very large. Neon's a lot of fun. If you got the space for one, you can get smaller ones too, folks. So I'm not saying Ryan's still design. I have no idea if you're still designing or not neon, but
sure,
but it was a fun project.
I love designing neon. I'd be happy to design more custom ones, but there's going to be a bunch featured in the book.
That's right. Take a look. Get inspired. Get inspired. That's actually what I did. Is I looked at some of the other neons you had done at that point, and I was like, oh, you know what? This is a way better investment than a topper.
Totally.
Sorry, pinball fans. I don't think I need a $2,000 pinball topper. I think we'll do neon instead. I think it'll be more unique. So
totally.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on and talking about your book. I really do appreciate it. And again, folks, go to the website. There will be links in the video description, so you can just go and click right now if you're over on YouTube and hop right over and check it out.
Awesome. Dennis, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been great talking with you.